All right, we're here at Identity Week Europe, and I'm really happy to be joined by Andrew Budd, the founder and CEO of iProov. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we're very happy to chat with you. We haven't had you on the show before, so I think the best place to start is just for you to introduce yourself a little bit and talk about your background. I know you have a pretty extensive background in the industry, and also I think an engineering background as well.
I'm older than I look, Alex. At least that's what I tell myself. So I founded iProov in 2011. So we've been going a long time. But before then, I have a nervous twitch, which is to be at the forefront of technologies. So in the 1980s. I was involved in the microprocessor revolution that changed the way that industrial processes worked and products worked. Mm-hmm. And in the late 80s and 90s, I was one of the pioneers of the mobile communications revolution, designing handsets and networks. And in the noughties, I founded a business called mBlocks that was a world leader in mobile content and A2P messaging. And then I moved into identity. So I've always kind of position myself at the forefront of technologies. I think identity is the most interesting thing that I've ever done.
It's a very interesting space, just speaking from my own personal experience, but can you explain a bit more like what prompted the shift into identity? What were you seeing at that stage in your career that made you think that I have to move into that space?
Alex, I ended up on television.
Oh dear.
And I didn't want to do it again. The brief story is that in 2008, my previous company, mBlocks, of which I was the founder and the chairman, had become the world's largest processor of mobile payments. We were clearing and settling about $500 million a year in mobile payments, largely for ringtones.
Okay.
Ringtones? Did you know that at its peak, the world ringtone market was larger than the entire global recorded music industry? Extraordinary but true. It was also a very big industry for adult and gambling, but we weren't in that.
Right.
And as a result, we weren't exposed to a lot of the fraud that was taking place. So our systems were naive, which meant that in 2008, when the criminals found that out, they were able to use our network to steal money from millions of people over a period of very few months. And when this came to light, we were very shocked, and so was the British press. And so I went on television and I had a microphone thrust into my face. Mr. Budd, the role of you and your company in this scandal, were you complicit or just recklessly incompetent?
Oh, wow.
Well, the regulator did an extremely deep investigation and said that actually we had been exemplary in our behavior. But I was very ashamed of that. And I said, this isn't going to happen again. How can we be sure that when a transaction takes place on a mobile phone, any mobile phone, that we're dealing with a genuinely present consumer, authorizing that transaction at that particular moment in a way that is zero effort, because in the mobile content world, any effort, every single click reduces conversion rate by 25%, zero effort, any phone, and secure enough to prevent people who could steal $1 million a week. And there was no solution to it. So, I'm an engineer. I had to invent it. And when I'd invented it, I suddenly realized that I hadn't addressed the problem of ringtones, which was kind of going out of fashion anyway, or mobile payments even. I had actually accidentally solved one of the most fundamental problems in the online ecosystem, the problem of creating trust from end to end. And nobody else had done this. And so I founded the business at the end of 2011. The question was, could it work? Because what we do is technologically very extreme, very, very difficult. It's really on the edge of technology. So I spent much of a whole year just making sure that this wasn't a fantasy, that it could actually work. And when we found that it was technically feasible, then I put the company together in 2013, brought in people, started to put money together, and off we went. It's the curse of the entrepreneur, Alex. Great idea, shame about the decade. Yeah. I knew what the problem was. I knew it needed a solution, and I was terrified that we were going to be too late in 2013.
Right.
It took 10 years for this problem to crystallize enough that now everybody in the industry gets it.
Right. Okay, so first of all, that's a fascinating history that I wasn't aware of. And so it's like almost personal for you.
Oh, very.
Yeah.
Very. Right from the word go, I've said, everybody in the company knows our objective is not to maximize sales growth, although that's important. It's not to produce beautiful PowerPoints or to acquire as many customers as possible, although that's important. Our job is to keep foreign secret services and serious organized crime out of our customers.
Right.
The mission of iProov is that I don't have to go back on television again like that.
Right. Makes perfect sense. And you mentioned you had this problem that many smart people have had throughout history, which is being too early a little bit to the space. But iProov is doing well now, it seems.
It all worked out fine, Alex, because what we're doing is and was and remains extremely difficult. And it took an enormous amount of work to make this thing work reliably. In this particular business, an MVP is worthless because you've got to balance. We have to continuously balance two requirements. One is we've got to keep the bad guys out, and the other is we have to make sure the good guys come in. So how can you keep the bad guys out when the attack intensity was and is quite great, and yet get 98% of good people in? And we had to work at that for about 5 years in peace and quiet to actually reach that level of performance. And because there was we invoiced almost nothing for 5 years, during which time we had a lot of government grants from Innovate UK, the UK Government Innovation Agency, which made possible our success. We had a little bit of we had about $1 million of investment from some visionary seed investors, and we lived on boiled newspaper. And we could focus, instead of being distracted by having to run around and perform for customers, because we didn't have any, we could focus upon absolutely making this thing work, which meant that in 2018, when our first customers went live, we could perform to a very high standard at scale. And we had already built the infrastructure that would scale the performance and scale the security, even as the threats went through the roof. And we knew the threats were coming. I was publishing articles in the newspapers about deepfakes and the threat from deepfakes in 2019.
Again, pretty early for what was coming.
We could see it coming.
Yeah. So, is there? I mean, without getting into proprietary secrets, what is the secret sauce that you landed on?
It's very public, and I can describe it quite briefly.
Yeah.
The problem you've got is that you're trying to determine whether you've got forged imagery or not. Typically deepfake, but deepfake is actually only one of the attacks. Axiomatically, today not all deepfakes can be detected, and tomorrow it won't be possible to detect any deepfakes. So the concept that somehow you can just look at the imagery and know that it's real or not is a fallacy. So what we have to do is we actually have to change the physics of the capture process itself. We have to do something unpredictable to the scene to create a problem that the deepfakes can't solve. And you've got very limited tools to do it, because on your average mobile device, you've got a screen, you've got a buzzer, you've got a loudspeaker, you have a microphone, you have a motion sensor, and that's about it. So you've got very limited sensors, transducers, and very limited sensors. And so we make the most of them. We use the screen of the user's device to illuminate their face with an unpredictable sequence of colors for a couple of seconds. And while that's happening, we stream video of their face back to our servers, where we analyze the reflection of that screen light from their face. It's an unpredictable sequence, so it can't be pre-perfected and forged. There are enough colors that the code space is in the millions. And the task of forging light from a mobile phone screen of a particular type, reflecting off a face, skin tone of a particular type, in an environment in a random lighting environment, that's just a weird problem.
Right. Yeah.
And so the synthetic imagery forgers can produce things that are perfect to the naked eye, but we're a billion data points ahead of them.
Right.
So we're able, by playing with by altering the physics of the environment, we can create a special problem that the deepfakers can't solve. And that's one part of our secret sauce. The other part of our secret sauce is that we have a continuous threat monitoring and response system, which means that we have the capacity we triage every transaction that takes place on our fleet worldwide. We analyze, we look for the ones that show suspicious indicators of suspicious transactions. We bring them back to our global security operations center, and then we watch them.
Right.
So we can watch the attackers as they experiment with our system. We can learn what their latest techniques are. We can replicate them, and then we can build defenses against them. The metaphor is like antivirus. Back in the noughties, if any of your listeners old enough as I am to remember this, the first generation of antivirus systems was just a disk that you would send out.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And then people discovered that actually the threat was changing so fast that couldn't work. So then you started to have a back-end system, and all the time the antivirus installed on your desktop would be reporting back to the central system what was going on. The central system would be going, oh, new virus signature, better fix it, and pushing out fixes for that, sometimes 2-3 times a week. That's exactly what we do, and we're the only company in the world that does it. Why are we the only company in the world that does it? Because it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do from a people point of view. It's very hard and expensive from a technology point of view. It's very hard from a process point of view, and it's an absolute nightmare from a legal point of view. It's it's toxic from a business model point of view. But we do it because it's the only way that, to joke, I can end up not on television again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have an engineering background, but what you're describing makes sense to me from a scientific point of view, how this system works and how it would be effective, particularly for human attackers. But you mentioned the threat of deepfakes, and you saw that early, and you see this flood of AI fraud coming, and you're kind of on a AI messaging tour at the moment. You were giving a keynote here yesterday, touching on the need for proof of humanity in the rise of agentic AI. So, what are you seeing approaching us, and how are you anticipating it?
So you're right. I'm on a bit of a mind-changing mission, because for the last 12, 13 years. Liveness, proof of human presence, liveness, was always regarded, honestly, as a bit of an incidental. If you were going to do biometrics, you'd do some cool face matching. Oh, and there'd be a liveness to protect the selfie, whatever. It was an incidental feature. Where what we see happening, and it was bought as an incidental feature, so people would simply buy the cheapest thing they could find, the cheapest and easiest to implement thing they could find on the shelves. And they didn't have to worry too much about its effectiveness, because in many cases, it was just a piece of compliance theatre, or maybe they didn't even appreciate the threats, so they weren't very worried about the quality of the product, whatever. My message is that with the rise of agentic AI, proof of human presence is going to go from being incidental to being foundational, absolutely foundational. And the reason for that is that there are 3 moments in the life of AI agents when proof of human presence becomes really, really, really fundamental. The first is when an entity turns up at a service and it goes, "Hi, I want the privileges of a human," and the entity goes, "Are you a human being?" And the agent goes, "Of course I'm a human."
Yeah.
We're going to move towards a world in which if an entity, a person, wants to get the privileges of a person, they're going to have to prove humanity. First point. Second point, agents are going to have to be accountable, but agents can't be accountable. You can't put an agent in prison or sue it. So behind every agent, there's going to have to be an accountable human being, somebody who takes responsibility for the actions of that agent. And that means that as agents, and I'm talking now on a large scale when agents are decentralized, not obviously in this generation where we have standard IAM systems which are quite well rooted in human identities. But as we move to decentralized identities for agents, those agents are going to have to carry around credentials, and the root of trust in those credentials has got to be a human being, because otherwise the agents will just accredit each other.
Yeah.
So at the root of trust, of ownership of an agent, there's going to have to be an identity which is itself rooted in a proof of human presence. And the third moment is when you have a human in the loop. There will be many times when a service provider will not allow an agent to do certain things. It's exceeding its mandate. And it's like, go back to your owner and get their consent to do it. Well, that proof of consent is only going to be as valid as the proof of human presence that underpins it. Because a human in the loop is only a human in the loop if there's a human in the loop. So how do you know there was a human in the loop? And proof of human presence is fundamental. So at those 3 moments in the life of agentic AI, proof of human presence is going to be absolutely foundational. Without it, and without it being robust, the entire agentic AI ecosystem will collapse into chaos. That means that proof of human presence, liveness, is going to go from being incidental to foundational. That means it's going to be load-bearing.
Right.
It's going to be load-bearing. And there are people out here at Identity Week who don't believe that liveness that can deliver that quality of proof of human presence. They go, oh, the deepfake problem has got too severe, liveness can't do it, there have to be other methods. There are others who kind of go, axiomatically, we don't believe that remote identity verification like that is possible. And I disagree. I disagree based on the fact that in the last 300 million verifications, we haven't had a single successful spoof. I disagree because we've got a system which is designed and certified to move at the speed of the AI attackers and stay ahead of them. I disagree because I have faith in the combination of technology, people and processes to seriously address a serious problem. So I believe that liveness and proof of human presence can be load-bearing if it's conducted seriously. And we do it seriously. And some of our competitors do it seriously. But many players in the industry don't do it seriously. And my plea to the industry is, my plea to the wider ID industry is, take a look at the credentials of your proof of human presence vendor, your liveness presence. Take it seriously. Try to distinguish between people marking their own homework, a bunch of exciting sounding slideware, and empty claims, and the small number of vendors who've got certifications, independent test results, proper recognized evaluations and benchmarks, systems and processes in place to actually deliver load-bearing proof of presence.
Right. So the message is not just for, let's say, like people, cybersecurity professionals who are working in the government or enterprise. You're trying to talk to the identity industry and saying, like, we all have to get this right.
That's exactly right. I mean, governments get it already. So many governments are our customers, and most of the serious use cases in governments worldwide are provided by iProov. Governments were some of the first to understand what they were up against, and some of the first to set a really high bar in performance, which is why iProov is by far the dominant vendor to governments worldwide. But in the financial services and the trust services industry in many cases as well. So I'm particularly proud that, particularly through our partners, Signicat, we supply SK Identity, who is the trust service provider in Estonia.
Okay.
You know, bit of a special place, Estonia.
Yes.
For all sorts of reasons. So the trust services industry gets it as well, but in the financial services industry, in the mobile industry, in the healthcare industry, where today we work for the NHS, but in the broader international healthcare industry, there are still enormous pockets of identity validation, verification, and authentication who haven't quite understood what they're up against and what they need to defend against. And the answer is clearly iProov. But I'm not kidding, you know. My job is to keep them off television.
Yes. Yeah. You have the, what's the word, like the passion of the converted or something like that.
You've got to believe it, you know.
Yeah.
I've seen there and looked. I've been there and looked down, and I don't. One of our commitments to our customers is that we will do whatever is reasonably in our power to protect them against what is coming. And people have to understand what is coming is not just what we've seen so far. But it is the types of attacks we understand, the speed of evolution
and
of
scale.
those attacks, and the scale exactly is going to. AI is putting these very sophisticated attack tools at the hands of practically everybody. Every year we issue a biometric threat intelligence report which describes what we have seen across the world from our monitoring of hundreds and hundreds of millions of verification transactions. What we see are incredibly rapid explosions in this or that attack methodology. So for example, iOS, which was traditionally considered a very secure ecosystem, boom, there was an enormous explosion in iOS emulator attacks, and suddenly the Apple devices were being successfully, well, some other vendors were being successfully attacked. We weren't being successfully attacked, but we know that some other vendor has been successfully attacked, because the attackers then turn those tools onto us, believing that they're going to have the same sort of success on us that they've had with others. So these sudden explosions in attempts are always symptomatic of a success that's taken place somewhere else. So that just blew up over the period of weeks. We see now rapid transfers of attack methodology. So an attack is experimented on in Latin America, it's industrialized in Southeast Asia, and then it's used against Europeans. And it happens now in a matter of weeks, not a matter of months or years, which is what used to happen.
Yeah. And as you say, it's just going to speed up. I mean, I talk about AI too much on this podcast, so I'm not going to go into a whole thing right now. Tony's behind the camera right now and he's smiling. But I do try to, spread the news that this is happening very quickly for people who aren't paying attention. It's the advancement of AI is exponential, and so I hear you when you're saying that this is a problem we all need to get ready for immediately. You really seem to understand the speed and scale.
Luckily, it's not really luck. Our deployment model has been built to support this, because pretty much all of the security that we do is in our back end, and we operate as a service. We can substantially modify our classifiers and our security systems 2-3 times a week, and we do. Some of our competitors who are providing software to run inside for deployment inside the systems of their customers, are then having to get their customers, if they even have visibility at all, which they normally don't, but if they have visibility of any sort through the exfiltration of attack data some way or another, they then have to get their customers to upgrade their systems once or twice a week, and oftentimes they have to get them to upgrade their SDKs once or twice a week. Can you imagine how disruptive that is? It's incredibly painful to have to continuously upgrade. If you are a business focused on identity verification or banking, to get these damn disks coming through every couple of once or twice a week, and be told, time to upgrade again, guys, major redeployment.
Yeah.
And because we are doing all the stuff that matters in our service, not on the device, and we're running as a completely managed SaaS service, we hide our customers from all of that pain, which means that as the rate of change goes from once a month to once a week to potentially once a day, we can protect against that. Our customers won't feel the exponentially increasing pain.
Right, yeah. That makes sense. And again, the message that you're spreading about this is, I agree, very important. And it's good to see you getting a great stage to do that here. You had the keynote address yesterday, and I think you said you're going to be at another event next week.
I'll be at Identiverse next week.
Okay.
In addition to this message at Identiverse, I'm also going to be talking about the growing importance of liveness assured biometrics to the management of enterprise identity. Up until now, enterprises have done pretty well with existing IAM and IGA infrastructures and existing methods of authentication. But I think that is breaking down now, and enterprises know it. So there are multiple points in the identity lifecycle of staff, of workforce. I don't just say employees, because very important, it includes non-employee workforce.
Right.
But there are multiple moments in the in the identity lifecycle of a workforce when there are now serious problems which can only be addressed using proof of human presence and or biometrics secured by proof of human presence. Just to cite one example, credential reset, account recovery. Over the last 2 years, we've seen loads of enterprises brought to their knees by compromised account resets. It happened 2.5 years ago at MGM and Caesars Entertainment. Exactly the same attack took down the Marks and Spencer here in England, in the UK. Exactly the same attack took down Alaska Airlines last summer. Exactly the same attack is believed to have almost bankrupted one of the largest upmarket car manufacturers in the world, JLR. It's always the same thing. It's always the account reset problem, because that's the moment at which people don't have any other credentials. Well, they do have a credential in the form of their face. Another example, many organizations have a problem with shared credentials. One says, here are your credentials, Mr. Contractor. Don't share them with anybody else. And there are cultures and places where it is considered almost an obligation to share the goodness around. So people who've got privileged access and are being paid a lot of money to do things share their credentials with their brother-in-law while they go off and get a second job.
Right, yeah.
The complicitly shareable credentials are a known problem with enterprises that no one has the solution to. Faces, protected by proof of presence, cannot be shared.
Yes.
I cannot give you, I cannot share, you cannot steal and I cannot share my face, at least not without extreme violence.
Yes, I'm too squirmish for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the North Korean employee problem which everybody's heard about. In all these cases, the combination of biometrics and with proof of human presence can solve problems that cannot be solved in other ways. And so we're launching we're launching a complete suite of solutions that use proof of presence to solve this multiple set of problems that enterprises cannot solve any other way by using liveness assured biometrics. And I'll be talking about that next week as well in Las Vegas.
Well, I hope your audience listens. Obviously at ID Tech, we're very much behind this messaging. So best of luck. You're a very compelling speaker. And
Thank you.
I hope we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thank you for your time today. Thank you to all the listeners for listening to me. I can never talk enough about identity, as you can probably tell.
He's an evangelist.
An enthusiast.
An enthusiast. All right, thanks very much, Andrew.